Hi, everybody. Welcome back to SaaS Founder Stories. Today, I have a very special guest on the show, Peter Mayer. He is one of the partners, managing partner, I should say, at Portage Sales. And today, we're going to have a really fun conversation because Peter's going to talk to us about all of the custom GPTs he's created to help him reduce how much time he spends doing the things he doesn't like to do, as well as we might get into a little bit of sales therapy. So, welcome to the show, Peter.
Hey, thanks a lot. Really, really happy to be here, David. And pumped about this conversation because I think in a previous conversation you and I were talking about GPT, and I think I've kind of hacked my way into how to automate and how to roll that out to some of my customers, and you guys have professionalized the whole thing. So I'm looking forward to learning as well in this conversation.
Well, I think I'm excited because you and I were kind of talking before the show about um, your other specialty, which would be complex multi-threaded enterprise sales process, and you
Yeah,
coach and you mentor in that space. And I think that's probably a conversation that you and I could talk about for a very, very long time. But when
yeah,
we were getting into that, you kind of mentioned that you have been working on these GPTs and you're seeing huge amount of lift, and so that kind of fits with, I mean, at Archaea, we're building agentic structures and are very focused on sales first and helping you close deals. So I thought, wow, let's have a chat about this because I think this will be
nice.
a fun one and very informative because there's so much you can do right now out there. And this is technology that everybody needs to be taking time to learn. So,
Yeah,
how did you get into, or actually, let's start with this because you said in 2023, they
yeah,
weren't very good, and now they're just popping.
yeah.
So what were you trying to do in 2023 when you started building these? And tell me like how it came out.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to set the table a tiny bit here, David, which is, my company is all about revenue enablement. We work with scale up firms. And so really what we were looking to do is save some time, like really bottom line. Like my biggest cost in my line item, like when I look at my P&L, really is my staff. I have a core team, about 5 staff full time. I use a bunch of contractors as well. And that's an important opportunity for my clients as well. So in 2020, if I dial back a little bit, like that was really, I'll say, the mission of let's not be caught with our pants down and left behind. Like,
Yeah.
like really, this is a thing. It was very clear that it's a thing. So, we better figure it out. My son, who's in computer science, jokes with me that I've got a computer scientist brain built into a business person's body. I looked at it as a bunch of experiments originally, and so it did turn into real substantive investment in the business. But originally, when we started out, we saw a chat come out, we decided let's look at, we've got some good process in the business. We got process around. So I'll give an example, which is, in our sales cycle, when I'm bringing in a new customer, we do research on that customer before we hop on for a discovery. Ours is a complex sale. We do a call plan. We take the transcript from the call and we process it through to do a discovery call analysis, like to really summarize. And then we have a proposal process as well. We have processes in the business, and that's one example. We also have like little discrete tasks, like just things that you're gonna do over and over again, like summarizing out from client meetings, or so there's a bunch of other things. And so we just started to play, really. Like honestly, we looked at it as what the hell, worst case scenario, we learn a whole bunch from it, and started to play. If I skip to the end, I'll give you the bookend on the end, and then we can start to double click on this. Is that in 2023, I was investing as much as I was saving. There was really like there's a net neutral. I was not seeing good returns in 2023. Plus, the SaaS market was kind of sucking, and so for me, for doing enablement work, like, business was solid, but not like growing crazy or anything like that. I'm seeing good upward growth this year, but also I have saved easily, like I would say easily 30% off my cost base just by implementing these in. And I can go into that more of, because I think it's more than just like, gee, we have some clever GPTs. Like I think it's how it functions in there that really matters.
Cool. Well, let's get into that because let's set the stage. So you were looking, you kind of touched on the things that you were trying to automate. So
Yeah.
where did you start? And then let's get into like how they work together because I'm really interested to hear that.
Like the one of the first ones that we started with is let's all be honest, like writing sales messaging is a pain in the ass. It's, you do not want to do crap templated messaging. Most of the stuff that ChatGPT, it's been trained on the corpus and of everything that's ever been written, right? And the problem with that is that 95%, I would say easily, of sales messaging is crap. It's terrible. Like you and I get that all the time. I get easily, I don't know, 10, 15 emails a day, like just saying,
Yeah.
hey, accelerate your dev projects. I don't have any dev project. Like, it's just like, it's terrible messaging.
Yeah.
And so we learned, I think, three things through doing that and focusing in on that. One is that you got to really spend time on what's the tone of voice and training it to be an expert in terms of how it's writing. Like what does good look like? We had to set better expectations in terms of what we wanted for output. And we needed to really inject in our ideal customer profile, our value prop, our testimonials. We've got a whole bank of those, like case studies, things like that into it to really turn out great messaging. And, fast forward, it took a few iterations. This was not out of the gate, but now I've got an incredible thing that saves me so much time because, I plug in and it's a chain of thought GPT. It guides me step by step by asking me some context questions. It already has inherent knowledge about me, or when I've designed it for clients, the client stuff in behind in terms of their value prop and things like that. It pumps out a short, a medium, and a long message for me to cherry pick from. And then I'm able to interact and iterate on it to come out with kick-ass messaging, like really on point, human, short, succinct, direct messaging. That's the kind of sales message you really want to do. And I know what it takes to do it all on your own. It's time consuming. And
Yeah.
this is like you think of, that triple constraint thing, the triangle, right? The time, cost,
Hmm.
quality thing.
Yeah.
And this is the first, I said early on when I was working on these experiments, and this was the first one we really dug into, is that this is the first time I've seen the opportunity to take a tool and work with it and be able to move all three constraints.
Because you take the one out,
Yeah.
and because time is what stops quality, right? And so if you reduce your time, doesn't it becomes a non-factor in the equation, and now you have quality
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
your other axis.
I,
Really
I,
interesting.
I could do it faster. I could certainly do it cheaper because it takes less people time. And
Hmm.
the quality, like the ability to embed in so much knowledge into it all at once is it is pretty sweet in terms of it's something I haven't seen before. And I'm 35 years into my career.
Well, see, that's really interesting because that's literally why we started Archeo,
Yeah.
because we were using AI LLMs to create reports and project documents and copy, and like sales copy and emails and all this stuff, and we could see the glimmer of the
Yeah.
capacity behind it if it
Yes.
actually had context, if it
Yes.
actually knew your
Yeah.
company. And
Yeah.
like that was like the whole, we went with a rag, really quickly realized that wasn't going to work because lots of people didn't, like you say, have the ability to put enough context in. And so now that's why we have like agents that are going in and pulling this data out and doing it for you so that you're able to see the true power of this technology.
Yeah.
So it's so exciting to see that there's so many ways that founders and companies are going to be able to use this. And when I think about like that paradigm you just explained, I just had a podcast guest on, and we were talking about like how this fundamentally changes how we run companies, because
Yeah.
the constraint on most companies is your people,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
resource
Yeah.
constraint. So you have a finite amount of money, you have a
Yeah.
finite amount of time, and you have to put those into the people that you have to produce a product or
Yeah.
produce an outcome. And when we have these agents or these like GPTs like you're using, you change the amount of time. So
Yeah.
now, so you're stretching it, and it's just so cool because I think we're going to see some absolutely amazing opportunities, I'll say, for companies to grow and scale like they've never done before because the constraint has always been time and money.
Yeah.
And so that constraint has just been changed. So
Yeah.
super cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you talked about that one. Let's talk about, you kind of alluded to chaining different
Yeah.
agents or different
And,
GPTs together. Tell me a little bit more about that.
and that's been the iteration. So, if we go to recommendation section of this podcast, in terms, the first thing I'd recommend is, if you haven't played with it, look for those discrete, I'll say one time but frequent events, and figure out how to automate it with whatever, with RKO, with AI, with
What are the top
GPTs,
three you
whatever.
would suggest they look at as a sales coach? If you
Like
were going
call
into my
plan for sure.
organization,
Most sales teams are abysmal at actually doing a proper call plan before you go in. They are, like, it's just because it takes
let's be honest,
discipline.
no, very few people do a call plan. They
Very
just
few.
go in, they read it, and they call.
And really,
I'll
who
call
cares
a
about the
spade a
call
spade.
plan? But let's double click under what you get. Like, really, let's think about what's the value you get as a salesperson. You're being purposeful. You're being very, like, if we talk about upfront contract, you're really clear on why are you having the call? What's the objective? What's the outcome you're aiming for? God, you should ask better questions in a discovery meeting. If you have a call plan, you've actually thought about that ahead of time. You have a list of 3 or 4 that are relevant and contextual for the conversation. The other thing is anticipating objections. Objections can make you panic as a salesperson, and they shouldn't. They're gold. And so, really, by bringing down the amygdala and like calming down the lizard brain, you can actually engage in that, ask some more questions. But that's some of the value of a call plan. And yet, they've been around forever. Very few do it. But now you have the opportunity with a tool like GPT to actually make that super fast. I can do a call plan. Like, we should do a different episode on time me. Like, give me a situation, tell me how long it takes me to pump out a really good call plan, like a quality call plan. And not that I want to rush through it, because you want to be thoughtful, but that's an example of discrete tasks. So I kind of went on a rant there of some of the things that are discrete tasks, and that's one of them. Sales writing is another one. Meeting analysis, whether it's a client meeting or when I do coaching sessions, I'll analyze the coaching session to, like, pump out back so that we have salient next steps and notes, and it's leading to something. The next breakthrough for us, beyond discrete tasks, has been to really take a hard look at what did we already have as a thorough, robust process in our business.
Mm-hmm.
And there were two where I've gotten so much payout from. One is, I would call almost like kind of discovery to quote proposal. Like, I'm in a services business. So I've productized the hell out of my leadership program, but I still got a lot of variability when I'm doing frontline programs in terms of enabling sales, customer success teams, things like that. And so with that variability, you got to really, and we tailor everything. So we got to really listen in discovery. We got to inject that back into the proposal. Got to think about how that reflects in the pricing. So we had a process for all of that. And really we've automated that into, I'll say automate means that it's not hands off, that's for sure. But it's your partner then. We have 3 chain of thought GPTs, and one connects to the other in terms of actually going through that process. Same thing with our learning design process. Learning design really takes it's an expertise. Like, it takes a lot to, anybody can pump out a course, but to actually have something that's engaging, has great questions through, gets the interaction going within the first 2 slides, is, again, has their examples injected into it, is simple as well. So we have a very, very well mature learning design process. And that's another example where we've taken it's 5 GPTs that we chain together in terms of running that process. And it does 2 things. One is, it certainly does speed us up. That's great. It has us also produce much better outcomes, because it forces us, or forces my team members, to follow the best practice process. Everybody goes off, and I'm the worst of it, madly in different directions. I'm doing a new training course. If I don't have the process or somebody guiding me by the hand through that, I'm going to come up with a new process. I'm very good at coming up with new ideas. And this, like, what's amazing about it, I realized, is it prompts deep thought, because it tells you exactly what your next step is, and you're
Mm-hmm.
going deep on that, taking that, moving it on to the next step, onto the next step. And it's I think that's revolutionized my business, really.
I got an interesting question for you there because what kind of popped into my mind, I was in health and safety in a previous life, and a big portion of like getting people to do any process was
Yeah.
adoption. And it
Yeah.
was always incredibly challenging. But I
Yeah.
imagine with what you have there, like when I use ChatGPT or I use Archeo or any of these LLM products, what I find is they increase and make my life so much easier that it's
Yeah.
like I'm imagining when I go in there taking an 8 hour project and
Yeah.
being able to do it in two. And who wants to spend 8 hours on anything when
Yeah.
you can reduce it down or whatever the number is? But that's, and so I think like from an adoption standpoint,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
easy was it to get your team now they're following a process every time? Because it's like that much easier to do.
Like it's so much better, and I can onboard, I can bring in contractors. Because it literally, like, we have each GPT built. So I'm looking at my other screen because that's where they all are. And I have them open all the time, but it has a one button in the middle of the GPT that says step 0. Click there. It lays out the process. Would you like to carry on to step 1? Yes, I would. Great. Step 1, and then it clicks off. Now it forces you into step 2. It doesn't, of course, you can go madly off in a different direction if you really want to, but it really does guide you by the hand. And you still need to do training, and change is hard. And this is scary for people. And I've seen a real wide variety of still, even with all that, of adoption rates in terms of, my team and different team members, and ultimately produces much better outcomes.
Very cool. So for you, what's the next one you're building?
The problem that I have to solve for next is how do I really template and productize the rest of my business. Narrow this is like any founder, right? Narrow, number one, and productize, number two, and especially in services. Um, I do think that I'm still clunky in terms of integrating in all of the automation learning I've done in, like, right into my programs. And I think that's the next step, because I have now some terrific IP, like really good learning, deep learning on how to tailor this for my clients, in terms of, to make, all we do is change management, right, David? Like, really, when I talk about enablement, everything I do ultimately comes down to change management, overcoming
Mhm.
resistance, being clear about expectations, what the goal is, getting people over the line so we're driving more leads, retaining more customers, all that kind of stuff. And so if I can harness what I've learned with the GPTs to do that same thing around process, to guide people on my client side, like great producers, leaders for coaching, all that kind of stuff, to actually follow the best practice, then I think I can do a very good service for my clients. And I'm starting to do that, and I'm in experiment stage.
That's so cool. I love that. Um, so I always want to finish off any one of these podcasts with a quick question for you.
Sure. Yeah.
We have lots of people listening to this and it's growing every day. Is there anything that our network can help you with? Because we always want to get back.
Yeah, there is. I'm on a mission to have 100 new conversations over the next 6 months, meaning just with new contacts, and really they're not sales calls. I learn so much by tapping into new people in terms of finding out what the problems are, what's really ailing them, and of course I listen to a lot of podcasts and things like that. So anyone that's just ready for a one-off sales therapy call with me, where I'll give them my best, but really I want to poke away to understand and get their world,
Yeah,
because that helps me to tune what I'm doing a lot better. That's the ask, and even if you just want to message me on LinkedIn or whatever, that would be awesome.
that's perfect. I think that's like the best closing you could possibly have because if there's any advice that I push out, it's literally why I started the podcast. I get to
Yeah,
talk to founders and amazing
I
people
bet.
every
Yeah,
single week and have these type of conversations and learn from them and see what they're thinking and doing. Get out and start talking to people. Get out from behind your
uh,
computer. Get out there.
yeah,
Start
yeah,
meeting people.
yeah,
Find out what's going on, what they're working on. Don't be afraid. Share what you're doing and
yeah.
and be part of the community.
my business coach, everybody's got to have a coach. My business coach is pushing me to say, I want to see half of every day just on talking with people.
That's awesome.
And I think it's a worthy goal.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much in coming and talking to me. You're down to 99 conversations.
Thank you so much. What a give.